Welcome to Building Your Best Brain podcast. Today's episode is actually inspired by a DM that I got recently. Somebody reached out to me, saying that he was doing a really great job at seeing the positive in his day, regulating his daily stress, but that at times he gets bombarded with past memories. And he's messaging me and he's like, I know you can't change past memories, so how do you get around this? And it made me realize that I don't know where this information got out, but it is incorrect. You totally can change past memories. But I completely understand, how this isn't communicated and why we may think this way. It's happened to all of us. I know it's certainly happened to me where when I'm in a mildly stressful situation, especially if it's a new situation for my brain, that an old memory will pop up. Usually not the most pleasant memory, right? So if you're going on a date, for example, a new date, and then all of a sudden as you're getting ready to go, you have a memory of an ex that treated you poorly, or, that last time you got stood up on a date, or maybe it's a job interview and then all of a sudden, memories are popping up before the interview of all the ways you were disappointed in yourself when it comes to your career and work. And this is something that I have worked on really diligently. And with my background in neuroscience and meditation, I've really have been uniquely positioned to grab a lot of different tools to begin to basically rewrite my past. Now, this is not to say that those painful memories are trivial, because of course they're not. But they're coming up for a reason. And the fact that they're coming up at all truly means that your brain is ready to deal with them. So there's this interesting thing, especially in early development. And some of you guys may know this. It's called repressed memories. So especially when we're younger, when we experience something traumatic, our brain can get into a bit of an overexcited mode. We call this overexcitation. So our brain, and I'll put in the show notes my fundamental neuroscience episode so you can catch up on the fundamentals, but our brain communicates through neurotransmitters which help different neurons become active. And this is the electrical activity we have in our brain. And so if the brain of a young child is getting overstimulated by traumatic events, you have this overexcitation of a particular transmitter called glutamate. And this is actually quite toxic for your brain. This is something that happens with concussions as well, which is a side tangent, but the brain, to compensate, will increase an inhibitory neurotransmitter, right? Which is the opposite of excitation. It brings all the activity in the brain down, which is your GABA neurotransmitter. And so when this happens, this is basically to silence that circuit, which is that memory. So if these memories are coming up, it means that your brain is in a place where it's safe enough for them to come up. It's not the most pleasant, but it's safe enough for it to come up and for you to deal with it. So if you're hopping on here and you have some past memories that are just not leaving you, congratulations, you are ready to rewire those memories. And so I'll discuss a few kind of surface level ways how, and happy to dive into these any deeper. But the first thing I want to touch on is memories can be stored in many places. So I'm sure you've heard of the hippocampus. This is in the limbic area of our brain, kind of one of the deep structures. This is where the majority of our memories are stored. This is where learning happens. And they're stored in kind of several different containers, if you want to call them. We have our short-term memory, which we can hold things for 5 to 10 items at a time for kind of a couple minutes, an hour, maybe a day. Our working memory is the one right after, where we manipulate information. We talk about working memory a lot, especially in the context of aging. This one is the one that's most affected by aging. And then we have our long-term memory, which is memories that we can carry for years, decades. And not everybody knows this, but we actually store memories in other areas. And one of them is the amygdala. And the amygdala is the small almond shape structure that is also around our limbic system. And it's most associated with fearful and threatening memories. So when a mild stressor comes up, it doesn't surprise me that maybe it gets paired with one of these memories. And what that tells me is that it is stored in the amygdala, which means that that memory today, as it stands, is threatful and fearful to you. And now you're probably thinking, well, how can something that, happened to me 20 years ago with maybe somebody that's not in my life anymore, or a circumstance that's completely different, or when I logically look at my life now, I'm nowhere near the level of experience or the age or whatever it is that memory happened. Well, that's all true. But when it comes to our stress response, logic doesn't work often. And it's because it doesn't need those structures of the brain, right? So your prefrontal cortex, for example, to fire. So when your stress response is turned on, and in this case, I'm talking about the HPA axis for my geekier folks, which of course I can deep dive another time. When that's activated, when that's turned on, the amygdala can also be activated as a consequence of it. But interestingly, the amygdala alone, let's say you're out in the world and something triggers you. Somebody says something, you see a specific color, a specific smells, there's projections from your nose straight to the hippocampus, but that's another topic. I can't believe how much I want to talk to you guys about all this. A location, a place, a person, whatever it may be, if that activates that memory, the amygdala can actually turn on the stress response on its own. So there's been studies where, you stimulate the amygdala and the stress response turns on regardless of what's happening around that person. You see what I'm saying? So it's not something that we can logically fix, which is a bummer, but it's not, because you can still fix it. And it is a great thing that you're learning that you cannot logically fix it. You cannot put in a math equation to fix this. And that it's not a result of outside forces, right? Outside forces are bringing this up. And the fact that you're able to recall it, that you know this memory, is a sign that you're able to rewire it. And by rewiring it, we tap into something called neuroplasticity. And so the way I'm going to go through all the steps is to talk about neuroplasticity. What are the activities we can use to boost this? And then what are some practical tools once you boost this plasticity to begin to rewire and change that circuit? So again, this is covered more in depth in the brain fundamentals post, but neuroplasticity is the ability for your brain to change connections. It is not creating more cells, that is neurogeneration. But neuroplasticity in itself is incredibly impactful because one neuron in your brain can have over 100,000 synapses, which are basically connections to other neurons in your brain. So being able to adjust this can radically change your life. And ways in which we can boost our neuroplasticity is through exercise, through learning new things, and my favorite is meditation. So neuroplasticity gets gets highlighted when it comes to aging. And this is where I think meditation is really, really great. So learning new things, exercise, also incredible things to boost neuroplasticity. Learning new things, you are directing your circuits to something really specific, which is an important thing to consider when we're boosting neuroplasticity in our brain, we want it to go somewhere. We don't want our brain to become more plastic to then make the circuits that we want to change stronger. That's just not what we're trying to do here. And exercise is also great. And it's great for many reasons beyond neuroplasticity. But there also can be a bit of a limitation when I think of people that maybe have restricted mobility or not as much access to exercise equipment as they wish. And there's many forms of exercise, but what makes meditation really great is that it's very repeatable and free. Repeatable, free, and when it comes to our brain and learning something new, boosting anything in our brain, it's small, repeatable actions that make the biggest difference. And this is where my favorite saying of all time that I'll say for the rest of my life, cells that fire together, wire together, basically meaning that the activity we direct to our brain, the more activity we direct, the more efficient that circuit will get so that it is not going to take as much activity for it to fire. And so the fact that this circuit, your fearful memory, is coming up in an instant with a small trigger means that it is very well wired. So we want to boost neuroplasticity so that we can begin to redirect it to something new and it is not as strong. And with meditation in particular, there was a study done, a meta-analysis, which is a fancy way of saying they took studies that had already existed and pooled all the data together of participants that did a mindfulness meditation, had increase in their plasma of BDNF, which is a brain-derived neurotrophic factor, a factor that boosts, a protein that boosts plasticity in the brain. And my favorite part of this, linking it back to the exercise, is that it did not matter what age. There was no correlation with age, which meant that people who were, in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, all had an increase in BDNF when they were consistently practicing mindfulness meditation. Another one that also increases neuroplasticity is psychedelics. So psilocybin, for example, is quite well studied for boosting neuroplasticity. And if that is your jam, do your research, consult the experts, go for it. What I'm not a huge fan of when it comes to this is that it's not your own brain doing it, right? So something different happens when you are the source of your own healing. And that's like a whole other topic on its own. But when you can reliably boost your own neuroplasticity and reliably direct it where you want to go, your life completely changes in the direction that you want. And so psilocybin and the research into it is incredible, and it has helped an incredible amount of people in traumatic situations. And so it's not to take away from that, but I wouldn't want you, I guess, to sell yourself a bit short. Knowing that you can be the source of change in your brain. You have that power. Your brain is built for it. So step one is neuroplasticity, being able to boost it so that you can begin to direct your stimulation somewhere else. Now, how do we begin to weaken this really strong circuit we have already, right? Which is our fearful past memory. And so one way to begin to unpack and weaken this circuit is to address it head on. And so a part of the reason why this memory is in the amygdala, like I mentioned before, is because it is fearful and threatening to you. You are perceiving this memory as being 100% bad or 100% stressful or 100% threatening. And once you start to unpack the ways in which it isn't, this is where meaningful change can start to happen. And now you're thinking, why would something in my amygdala that's fearful have any good? Well, nothing in this world is 100% good and 100% bad. And for this, I will give an example. So usually what I encourage people to do is to create a T-chart with, the aspects that this memory or situation that keeps coming up is bad, because it's not like putting, rose-colored glasses. It's not spiritual bypassing. Like, of course, that is a fearful memory for a reason. And writing it out. In fact, even just writing it out takes away it being stored in your brain as much. It's almost like a bit of a release. And then on the other side of your T-chart, writing the ways in which it was good. Now, this can include lessons that you've learned. This can include things that it has highlighted in yourself that has changed your life for the better, whether that's a different trajectory you took, maybe it's different people you met, maybe it's different healing modalities, books you've read to explore as a result of this happening to you. And another thing that a lot of us don't look into or think about when it comes to these memories, because we're not taught this, because society loves us to be in a fearful state. Unfortunately, we're more controllable if we're scared and feel threatened, is these memories are showing you a desire. They're showing you something that you want to feel. I talk about that a lot on here, that it's often not the things that we want in life, the accomplishments, the milestones, the money, the relationship, but it's how we think it'll make us feel. So if you have a memory, for example, of childhood in which when you feel that memory, you feel very criticized, well, you probably want to feel appreciated. And you can take this a step further and look at, well, what are the ways in which I may be critical to myself? How is criticism that I'm doing myself, right? Like I said, this memory is not coming from the outside anymore. It's not like this is happening to you over and over again. It's happening to you in here. So what are the ways that you're criticizing yourself? And then if you want to take it a step further, look in your life now how you feel the opposite. What are the ways in your life that you are already showing up as the opposite? So the opposite of criticism, appreciated, valued. How are you valued in your day-to-day life? And it doesn't have to be crazy big things. I do this for several things I wish to feel. And I found out, what's super cool is I found out how I actually wanted to feel based off of some of these really shitty memories, right? So feelings of wanting to be appreciated is certainly one of mine. Feeling seen and appreciated for who I am is literally an exact thing that I journal every day, because that is what some of my past memories were showing me, was that I didn't feel like I was seen or appreciated for who I really was. I thought something was always wrong with me and that it would be better if I were different. But the truth is, every single day, there's even multiple examples I can get because I've been doing this for a while, I'm seen for who I am and genuinely appreciated for it. And so when you're writing out your kind of cons, the fearful parts, and then your pros, right, which are the lessons, the way your life has changed for the better, showing you what it is you want to feel and how you can get that for yourself already. What that does is that it begins to make that a lot less scary, and it comes out of the amygdala. So when you encounter a stressor, which you will because we're human, and our stress response is adaptive and is teaching us something always, that memory either won't come up, or if it does, the emotions around it will be a lot less. And the memory may not completely disappear. It may go into your long-term memory and be stored. But when it comes up, and if it comes up, it's going to have a much different feel around it, and it's not going to grip you the same way. And so for this, I encourage you to do this with one memory at a time and to not rush it. And once you do this exercise and you identify the feelings that you want to feel, because that memory has lovingly showed you what that is, to begin to journal on it every day, little moments in your day, which that feeling has shown up. And you know what we're doing? We're redirecting the stimulation. We've boosted our neuroplasticity and we're redirecting it to what we actually want. Pretty freaking cool. And the last thing I want to share is kind of what I mentioned before around these memories being repressed. So these memories, a large part of the circuitry can live in what we call our unconscious mind, which means that we're not aware that it is firing and activating, right? So that's why I mentioned that it's so great that these memories are coming up for you and you're able to identify it. You're already way ahead of the curve. But there's no doubt that when we are becoming reactive in life or really emotional to things that we logically don't understand, right? Like if we're, I don't know why this one came up. If we're in line at the grocery store and it's not like we have anywhere to be, but the person in front of us is taking their like sweet time and like on their phone and like half paying attention, and you're getting like crazy irritated by it, you're not reacting to what's in front of you, you're reacting to something in your subconscious. And people, say the subconscious is mysterious, and yes, it is, but honestly, a lot less so. There are great ways to activate it, meditation being one of them. And it's a particular protocol we use for meditation to activate it, which we call deep state meditation. And so in my brain fundamentals video, we go into the different brain waves in a lot more detail. But we have, like I said, electrical activity in the brain. And when neurons fire together, they create synchronous electrical activity, which we call a brain wave. So we have different frequencies, which is basically how many times a neuron will spike. So if they spike really fast, you have a high frequency brain wave, the highest one being gamma. And then if you have a low frequency brain wave where there's synchronous firing, but it's very few times in a second, you have a low one, delta being the lowest, which we experience in deep sleep. And so science has found out how to get into what we call hypnagogic, there we go, hypnagogic states, which is basically a twilight state. And we have probably experienced this before, where you're kind of getting up in the morning and you're sort of dreaming, but you're not dreaming. You're sort of awake, but you're not awake. That is that state. And we can get that in meditation with specific brain waves. And there's two of them. There's our alpha brain wave. And so this is kind of a mid-frequency brain wave. Like it's right in the middle. It's 8 to 12 hertz. And this is linked with kind of a relaxed, calmed mind, but it's a very conscious mind. Like you're definitely awake when you're in a alpha state. And then you have one lower, which is your theta. And that's actually one above delta, which is your deep sleep. And so this is where you starting to get into the subconscious mind a bit. So you're in a flow state, things are slower. And the protocol basically tries to find the intersection between your alpha brainwave and your delta. So different parts of your brain can be firing at different frequencies. They can even be firing at different frequencies in the exact same part of your brain, right? Because there's so many different circuits within regions, between regions. It's like a fun puzzle that our brain is. And so what scientists will do or clinicians will do is they'll try and find what they call the alpha theta peak. So once alpha decreases and theta starts, that's a great intersection begin to play with your subconscious and conscious mind. And so what this can do is that this can unearth new repressed memories, right? Which is why if you're exploring this kind of protocol, it is something I would not encourage you to do alone. And if you do it alone, ensuring that you have supports with you, right? Be it, therapists, coaches, loved ones, so that whatever comes up, you don't feel alone. But the good news is that you have, the tools that I just mentioned, right? That if something new comes up, you already have a framework to begin to unpack it. So it can unearth new things, but you can begin to reprogram, which is my favorite, which means that you can basically insert a new or revised memory. And you kind of have a bit of this revision through doing the T-chart exercise, right? So kind of being able to go in and reframe that memory so that it is not as fearful and salient as before. And they've done this with a lot of really what we call complex trauma cases, complex PTSD cases. They've also done this in the context of alcoholism and addiction and have seen significant improvements. Basically going in and taking that fearful memory, that fearful belief, and reframing it to a new one. And so what I love with this kind of meditation is that you're getting into a new state where you have access to these memories, which you wouldn't before. And then you're also in a space where you can redirect that stimulation, right? So coming back to the front with neuroplasticity, being able to send it and direct it to where you want it to go. And this is where I would say my meditation practice, it didn't start here. So when I started meditating, it was very much to decrease my reactivity in life. Because of these past memories and these unconscious beliefs I had, I was quite reactive in the world, which is, some of you may be able to identify with it, freaking exhausting, right? Like to just have my cortisol be coming off all the time is quite hard on the body. And I was logically trying to look and, do cognitive behavioral therapy and like logically be like, yeah, but this isn't a big deal. But it always felt like a big deal to me. And it wasn't until I started not hiding from these memories anymore, but unpacking them and redirecting them to where I want to go, that I don't react the same way. And it doesn't mean that stuff in my life doesn't happen, because it does, for sure. But there's a lot more that I appreciate in my day. And when things do happen, it's like I have a completely different view of what they mean. They don't mean anything about me, truly. They don't mean anything about you. It's basically showing you where you want to go. Maybe showing you where you don't want to go. Maybe showing you holes and gaps that you can fill yourself. You and your brain are able to fill it. And it's not that you don't need support or that you're an island, but you don't need anything outside of you to tell you how wonderful of a human you are. You can build circuits to do that for you, I swear. You can build all the circuits you want. It takes time. It takes, again, small repeated stimulation, but it's completely possible. You are not stuck with these memories for the rest of your life if you choose not to. So this is where I'm going to finish this episode. I would love to hear your questions and thoughts and which section resonated with you the most. Which ones are you going to take with you? Which ones do you have questions about? And I'm really excited to share. It's a little bit of a sneak peek that I'm going to be launching a coaching business using neurofeedback really, really soon, like in the next couple months. So the protocol that I mentioned before, which is your alpha theta dance. What's cool is that you can use neurofeedback. So that's using your own brain's electrical recordings, using EEGs, and then giving you, the practitioner, feedback on how your brain's doing. So either that's a visual getting brighter or dimmer, maybe it's a sound getting louder or quieter, so that you can teach your brain what state you want to get in. And so the specialty that I'll be bringing is neurofeedback and meditation, all geared towards rewiring your brain for your goals, which I'm super, super excited about. So I am taking emails for people on the wait list. I'm only going to be starting with a small group to begin with, because I value your time and your transformation and am honored to be able to support you in your rewiring journey, that I only want to start with a few people so that they can get the most out of the program. And so if that's something that you're curious about, you can DM me on Instagram or TikTok at synaptic.sylvie to get on the wait list, so that you'll be the first to know when the program launches, and I'll send it to you before I send it to the rest of my email list. And if you made it to the end of this episode, I'm really proud of you. I'm really excited for you. And please don't be shy to share how things are going, how your transformation's going. I love hearing how the work works for you. And I look forward to discussing more things about the brain soon, and wishing you a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you. Have a great one.